Hi, and welcome to Untethered with Jen Liss, the podcast that's here to help you break free, be you, and unleash your inner brilliance. I'm your host, Jen, and in this episode, we're going to talk about how to have more money and less stress. Let's dive in. Hey there, unicorn. It's Jen. Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, holy baloney. So exciting. We have Kate Northrup. Kate is the queen of helping women to shine bright without burning out. And one of the main ways that she does that is to help people work less while having less stress and creating more abundance. And that's not just an abundance of money, which we spend a lot of time actually in this conversation talking about money because it's on most of our minds, right? And she teaches specifically about money, but she also supports people in having more time, more energy, more of all of the good things in your life that you really are desiring. Her expertise is in supporting people with embodiment and understanding that it's our feelings. It is the actual physical sensations in our body. It is our nervous system. Y'all know we talk about this all the freaking time because I too am obsessed with it. It is our nervous system that is controlling the things that we actually do, the actions that you take. It is in your nervous system. And Kate breaks it down like nobody else. She is going to rap at you today about exactly how that is happening and how it's influencing the actual outcomes that are happening in your life. And in particular, when it comes to money. But keep in mind, as you listen to this episode, it's not just about money. And money is something that obviously we live in a capitalist society. It is something that we have made up. She started the conversation like, we have made this up. I can't wait for you to listen to this whole thing. I don't know why I'm blabbing so much about it because it's just so freaking good. But it's not just money. It's your relationships. It is your work life. It's your career. It's all things. It's the way that you play, the way that you have fun. How much fun can you actually have? It's all controlled by this same mechanism that she's speaking about today. So without further ado, welcoming to the podcast, the wonderful Kate Northrup. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
It's so good to have you on and to talk about a topic that is on all of our hearts and minds all of the time. And I'm curious to hear why money is the thing that you talk about. Why is it something that you love to talk to women about?
I love that question because money is a metaphor. Money is pretend. So we as a society made money up. Thousands of years ago, instead of trading, cows for sheep, we decided to have currency that was a stand-in for the cow or the sheep. And we started instead, if I didn't want your cow today, but you wanted my sheep, you could instead give me this currency that is a symbol of value. Money is just a symbol of value. And so because it is, yes, obviously we need to play in the system. We have to play the game in order to participate in society, but it is a game. And so it's such an opportunity to look at a reflection of our own behaviors and our own nervous system set points and our own beliefs and programming, because the way money works in our lives is largely a reflection of our unconscious. And yes, it's really important to learn the rules of personal finance and do those 3D steps, which I also teach. However, money is just such an interesting playground to learn about ourselves and to upgrade our reality and kind of upgrade the way we are doing life.
I'm laughing to myself because I started a Facebook group a few months ago called Fuck Around and Get Paid. Because so when you talk about it being a playground, it's an experiment, this Facebook group. I'm just like, let me just throw it up and see when, I have to be not the only person in this world that's like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I just want to have more fun in this lifetime and I want to get paid for doing it. And I actually believe that that's possible. I believe that that's possible. So can more of us do that? And so my question to you would be, do you think that's possible, Kate? And
100%. That is literally a couple of years ago. Well, now this is quite a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago or something. My husband, who's also my business partner, said to me, he was like, do you feel business or do you feel like you get paid to journal? And I was like, I feel like I get paid to journal.
like, you could take that question in multiple different directions. I love that you took it in.
I mean, yes, we have a multi-7-figure business. We have people we pay. Like, we do real things. We have a 401k. I mean, we do like grown-up people shit. However, I feel like most days I'm playing business and I really run our business according to my intuition, according to my inner sense of what feels expansive or what feels contracting. And that to me is the best business strategy I have found. Like last year, we actually closed our 2 most successful programs. One of them was bringing in $400K a year. One of them was bringing in $600K a year. I didn't have the exact plan how that was going to. I just said goodbye to $1 million in revenue because it just didn't feel right anymore. There was nothing wrong with either of those programs. Our customers were dreamy. They were not hard to sell. It was like working, but sometimes we have to say no to good to have great. And so that was an example of like, fucking around and getting paid to just be like, I wonder what would happen if I listened to this inner call that it's time to close these programs. And in the end, we had our first multi-7-figure year. And it was totally magical. And so that's just one example of how that can actually work. But it requires quite a bit of inner fortitude and trust and a deep inner sense of safety that is not mitigated by external environment.
Right. So you built those other 2 businesses also from intuition because you've been speaking about this for so long. And so trust that they were built from that place too. And then you listened to the nudge and you dismantled them and you started something new. And then you saw again, like huge growth like you had seen with those businesses. So that makes sense. What are most of us doing wrong that we aren't to that place of being like, I got a 6-figure business I can dismantle and make a bigger one. So many of us are in this, like we're coming up against a brick wall all the time. So
Totally.
What are we doing wrong?
Yeah. So I want to say, I'm not trying to be cavalier about it. Like my business pays for our family and also pays for the salary of our nanny. And also like, there are real people who depend on that revenue. My children, me and my husband, our whole team, whatever. So it's not like I have a trust fund that was like the backup plan, right? This is the plan. Our business is the plan. And so for those who also have very real financial responsibilities, I want you to hear me say that even with that, I play. I listen to my intuition. So like what's happening out there? Okay. What's happening is we have been conditioned to believe that a certain amount of money is going to finally make us feel safe. And that after we reach for most people, this nebulous amount that we have not even identified what it would be, that we're like, when this happens, then I will finally feel XYZ. We have it completely backwards. The game is actually to learn how to feel the way you want to feel first. And then the money thing kind of works itself out. Because if I was looking to money and my business to be my source of spiritual sustenance, of emotional sustenance, of, all my sense of safety and worth is tied into this business and this income, I would be totally fucked. And that is how most people are operating, that their career is their identity, that the amount of money they make is how valuable they are, that what matters is hitting all these milestones on the corporate ladder, or then they swap it out for the entrepreneurial ladder, which is the same freaking thing. This whole idea that like 1 million downloads of a podcast makes me better. It doesn't. Your worth is inherent and invaluable. You are it is, you cannot put a price. There is no, we just are. We just are. We just are valuable. We are just infinitely worthy. We are just lovable. We don't have to do anything to deserve that, to earn it, to keep it. It just is. And so when we can tap into that place of source with a capital S, so when we stop making money our source, when we stop making achievement our source, when we stop making our business our source, and actually connect with source, then we can be in that deep place of trust. And I think the directions get louder. Like the intuitions get louder, and it just becomes easier to follow the divine plan and path for your life that God, or whatever you want to call it, has for you. But we just are so distracted by ego and by thinking that we are our worldly success, and that the more worldly success we create, the more worthy we will feel. And what is true is that is a lie. There is no amount of external success that is going to make you feel worthy if you cannot already feel worthy right now.
It's so, everything that you describe here is so relatable. And I've been on that track. I built a business. I got to six figures, which felt like a huge success as a hairstylist. I was a hairstylist for years.
It's amazing.
And then I dismantled that and I went into the corporate world, and I got to the same and more. And then I felt the same thing. I was like, I feel like I'm just not happy when I got to this level. And I think a lot of people are recognizing that that is true. And there's this wake up that's happening right now. We're all like, what is this? And what you're saying about we're almost making money the source with the capital S, and that's not working. So what do we do? What do we do about this if we recognize, sounds like me, sounds like I might be chasing the success, I might be tying up my worthiness in my own success or into money. What do we do?
So we have to really understand something that no one else that I know of is talking about in the world of personal finance, and that is the nervous system. So most folks who begin to understand, like, oh, this is more than just a savings plan and like getting the right spreadsheet or money tracking software, then they're like, oh, it's my mindset. So great, I just need to fix my money mindset. The problem with that is that we cannot think our way out of a way that our body feels. So we cannot think our way out of our biology. And here's how our biology works. Our nervous system is a network of neurons that are connected to our brain and our spinal cord, and our vagus nerve is the central area of this. And there is not one part of our body that our nervous system is not in and is not impacting. It is the foundation of every single physical process going on and every single behavior that we take. Now, people in the personal development world for years have said, oh, your thoughts create your reality. No, they do not. Here's what actually is true. The experiences that we have in our lived experience, and then also what our ancestors experienced, and then also what our nervous system is receiving from the collective, all of those experiences, so stuff that we personally experienced, stuff that people we identify with experienced, and stuff our ancestors experienced, creates these nervous system set points. And that creates our emotional reality. So all of our emotions are mitigated by our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system. Autonomic means it's happening without you thinking about it. It's unconscious. And so the entire landscape of our unconscious is actually deeply embedded in our nervous system. So all of our emotions are caused by our nervous system. And then we think thoughts based on the sensory experience, essentially a physiological experience that we're having that we call an emotion. All an emotion is a feeling in your body. And it's a collective of it's a collection of sensations that we then name anger, grief, joy, whatever. It's just like anger feels like tightness in my chest. That's actually what is happening, is my nervous system is signaling that there is a threat. And then I'm having a physiological sensation, which then we begin to tell a story about and make meaning of, and then we do something about it. So our behavior is caused by our nervous system set points. And those nervous system set points are set by the environment in which our nervous system developed, meaning our childhood, starting before conception, quite frankly, because of the way DNA sends down signals and information through the generations. That's the study of epigenetics. So what do we do about it? Well, we learn how to change our nervous system set points. And as we do so, we automatically upgrade our reality and we don't have to work so hard. So what you described with hitting over six figures as a hairstylist, which is incredible, and then going into the corporate world and then earning just as much and then more and still feeling like, this isn't it. That's because, and you're not alone. Like I've been there too. And so many other people have too. We have been taught that a certain amount is going to make us feel a certain way, but we don't actually have the receptor sites to feel abundance in the first place. Why? Because most of us were raised in an environment with financial stress and pressure, or that was either caused by actual lack or caused by a story being told about lack. Quite frankly, it doesn't actually matter how much money there was in the environment. What matters is the story that was being told about it. So our nervous system doesn't do math. Our nervous system has no idea what numbers are. Our nervous system speaks in the language of energy, and emotions are just energetic signals. That is how physiological experiences are created in our body. They are through the nervous system speaking from neuron to neuron through electricity, which is energy. It is a feeling. And so if you want to know your default nervous system set point, just tune back into what it felt like around money when you were growing up. Now, our nervous system, according to that whole network, anything that is unfamiliar is unsafe. So it will do everything it can to keep us in the narrow band of reality that is familiar to us, even if that reality is not what we desire. Which is why a lot of people will experience an income plateau and they'll be like, I can't seem to get above this level of income, or I can, but then I keep spending just as much. So I'm not actually experiencing any more wealth, or I'm actually doing great financially and I'm doing great with my savings, but it still feels like it's never enough. All of those are symptomatic of having a nervous system set point that is trying to keep you in a narrow band of reality based on the familiar, based on what you've experienced before. And so the name of the game is to learn to signal safety when we're up against the edges of stress, both positive stress and negative stress. So as an example of positive stress, when I got offered my first book deal, I went to a cafe and burst into hysterical tears. I had this feeling of, I don't deserve this. I was kind of like devastated. I mean, it was bizarre. And it was like, I should
like
be
the most magical thing just happened.
Like, what is happening? The queen of spiritual and personal development, Louise Hay, has personally just offered you a book deal in real life. Like I was there with her. And I was in such a spiral of beating myself up and I don't deserve this. Why? Because that positive stress had taken me outside my range of capacity, and my nervous system was experiencing it as a threat because it was unfamiliar. And my nervous system was trying to keep me safe. So emotionally, it was bringing me back down. Instead of experiencing an actual expansion and high and joy, it was bringing me back down to what felt safe. Not what felt good. Didn't feel good. Felt terrible. But it felt safe because I know how to beat myself up. Right?
To this
like
point.
We know how to be depressed and anxious.
Yep.
And so does everyone else. But what we actually want to do, and I wish I had known this at the time, but I didn't, is that in that moment, what my body needed was to have a signal of safety to say, hey, baby girl, we're up against an edge here. You're experiencing something that you've never experienced before. And you know what? it's something you desire. It's beautiful. And so what we're going to do is we're going to regulate, and we're going to signal safety in this moment so that your capacity for joy and for expansion and for abundance actually expands. And when we do that over and over and over again, very similar to lifting weights, we, just like your biceps get stronger, you build your capacity to feel a wider range of human experience while still remaining regulated, meaning you are awake, you are conscious, and you have agency over your behavior. And you actually feel like you're there, as opposed to you're like, why is this happening? I don't want to be doing this, but I cannot stop myself. So that's kind of how the nervous system works around money. And that's why it's hard for us to create our desired financial realities, because most of what we desire is unfamiliar. So our nervous system is trying really hard to prevent us from having it.
You do such a good job of explaining this better than anybody. I think the science with also like, here is what is actually happening in your body that is causing this to occur. I actually had
wild?
This is a little bit meta, Kate, because last year I had an opportunity to do breath work at Kathy Heller's retreat, that was a heck of a moment for me. That was super cool to get to do breath work at that retreat. The next day I did a podcast episode about this. The next day I call it flipping your joy breaker. I think you talk about it like a thermostat, which is a super cool metaphor. And if you want to dive into that, that might be supportive to people. But I call it flipping your joy breaker. It was like I tapped the edges of that nervous system. The next day, I just wanted to sit in my hotel room and cry all day, because it was like I had just tapped it out. What I ended up doing that finally was supportive to me, I went and got in the ocean, and I just sat there and just let the waves just wash over me for like 30 minutes. And then I had this most magical experience with somebody who arrived for me. So I felt like the universe was like, you did what you were supposed to do. So I'm curious, would you go into your thermostat metaphor? Because I think it might be helpful for people to understand that it's like that set point.
For sure. Yeah. So we have a thermostat setting that our nervous system has for how much joy and expansion and abundance and bliss, pleasure, all of it that we can feel. And that thermostat is based on the environment that we were raised in. And so if you think about the amount of joy and expansion that was available in your childhood in the environment, like the energy of it, that's your set point. And so for most of us, it was like it kind of had a lid on things. And maybe we were shamed if we were too joyful, or maybe we were shamed if we were too emotional. Like, on both ends of the spectrum, for most people, somebody was trying to keep a lid on us. And that's because what they were taught is that it is unsafe to live outside this narrow band of reality. And their nervous system was just trying to keep us safe. So it's not malice. It's just toxic.
We're just passing it down.
And so that thermostat setting will automatically bring us back down. And that's exactly what you described after leading breathwork and what I described after getting offered a book deal by Louise Hay. It will bring us back down to the thermostat setting, just like in your home when you set the thermostat at 72 degrees. When it gets to 76, the air conditioning turns on and brings you back to 72. When it gets to 68, the heat turns on, it brings you back to 72. And so our bodies are the same way. However, we can update the thermostat setting. And so your example of going to sit in the water and let the waves crash over you, there were so many things going on in that moment, and I want to highlight what they were. You were updating your nervous system. You were changing the thermostat setting. How? Because when we connect with nature, which is our original source, our bodies, we are animals. We are nature. There is no separation. So you are just going home. When we go get in the ocean, when we lay in the forest, when we take a walk, when we take our shoes off and stand on the bare earth, we are going home. We are literally plugging into source. So you did that. Number one, just getting in the ocean, which is a sensory experience. How do we plug into source? We come back to our senses. Every time, embodiment, getting into our bodies. And we do that through feeling our senses. So you got in the ocean, you had a sensory experience. You allowed the waves to crash over you, which is a repeat rhythmic experience that actually is inherently regulating. And what these regulating practices do is they signal to our bodies that we are safe. And so you had this expansion and you were feeling a contraction, which is also normal and healthy, by the way. But I think that we don't have to feel them as intensely and for as long sometimes if we have these skills. And so you were out there allowing yourself to connect with nature, plug into source, have that rhythmic motion, that sensory experience, allow yourself to be held by the ocean. And it signals to your body that you are safe when you are at the edge of expansion. And so now your body doesn't have to experience that as a threat anymore. Now it can just be like, oh, now this is included in my range of regulation. And so now leading breathwork to a few hundred women at this incredible retreat with a great leader it is safe to do that now. And so that is now part of my reality. And so then you just shifted your thermostat setting. So when that happens again, you won't have to go through that like depth of whatever you called it, which I loved, the joy breaker.
Joy breaker, yes.
Yeah, the joy breaker, right? Like you know, there may be a wobble, there may be a little, but it doesn't have to be, right? Like when I got offered my second book deal from Hay House, I was elated. I didn't do the thing that I did before. I was just like, absolutely, I was born for this. It was great.
That's so beautiful. So how do we tie that back for people who are like, okay, I get that. And I can even maybe sense that maybe I've had an experience like that. I'm even thinking, as you're speaking, I'm having my own experiences because I'm thinking about there was one time in the corporate world where my income doubled overnight. I got a job offer that was double what my previous one had been. And I remember going in a bathtub and just crying. Just crying. I was like, how is it that my worth has suddenly doubled? And I was tying my worth to the number, and it was all kinds of things that I have dismantled, but you're helping me realize, oh, wow, I did the exact thing that I was supposed to do in that moment. I went and I got in water and I sat there and I let it process, and then we're able to do it. But how do we tie an experience like your book deal and an experience like my breathwork situation to money?
Mm-hmm.
Just
to money, yeah.
Pulling that thread together.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So when it comes to money, you know, money is so associated with our sense of safety, our sense of security, our sense of freedom. And so we associate money with, and then we conflate money with our worth and lovability. And it's very complex. So that's a lot of what I work on with people, is like dismantling those things so we can let money be money and let our worth be our worth and let them be separate. Conflating them is so dangerous and fraught. But when it comes to money, your example about your raise or your doubling your income overnight is the perfect example, because when we have money goals, right? You might want to have a 6-figure year, or you might want to have a 5-figure month, or, I don't know what you want. And these things,
money.
You want money. We want money. You want a certain amount in your investment account. You want, you calculated your freedom number. So now you know how much you need to have in investments to be work optional by a certain year of your life. All these things, right? You want a certain amount in your savings, blah, blah, blah. Pay for college, all these things. So we want these things. Our desire for them is beautiful, and we get to want all of the things. And by the way, there is not one shred of me that doubts that anybody listening to this can have what they want. So you get to have what you want, and there's no reason you could tell me, you could not convince me for any reason that you are different than everyone else and that you are not worthy of it, or you don't have what it takes. You absolutely do. And I guarantee I have heard the stories from people who have created their desires financially, who have very complicated scenarios that had zero evidence that they are the kind of person who could do this. Now, does that mean that all the systemic issues are not real? No. However, it's like, okay, but what do we actually do in our lives? We decide that we can have it. And so the thing is that's very tricky is that everything we desire, for the most part, is something that we have not experienced before. And in many cases, it is something that nobody else in our family or our friend group has experienced before. And that's very tricky because we're wired for belonging as humans. And part of the way we create unhealthy belonging is by fitting in and keeping ourselves small and relatable within our family systems and within our friend groups and our communities, because it helps us to feel safe. Because evolutionarily speaking, if you stood out too much, you were going to get eaten by the lion. And then also there was like a whole history for women in particular of, if you stand out too much, if you get too much attention, if you're a powerful woman, you will be killed. Like, there is a real danger that lives in our DNA around the danger of going big and the danger of being in our full power. So we don't have to then just make that be our lives and be like, oh, so I'm just going to play small. No, all we need to do is update our nervous systems so that the next generation is not being passed along the DNA programming that it's dangerous to be big. And so instead, tying it back to money, let's say you're hopping on your first discovery call for your coaching business, and somebody has booked a call to see if working with you is what they want to do. And you're like, this is terrifying. I'm an imposter. Right? Like, all the thoughts. Now, a mindset person would be like, just change your thoughts. You cannot in that moment talk your body out of being terrified. You cannot. Your body is just like, fuck you, you're lying. And so our bodies know what is true. Yes. This is why I really hold an issue with the whole, like, just change your thoughts. No, it's not that easy, but it actually doesn't have to be complicated either. In that moment, what we really need is for our bodies to feel safe. So we do something then that signals safety. We can do what you did, which is get in the tub and have a good cry. That actually completes an emotional stress loop and allows us to free ourselves and feel safe. It releases a whole bunch of like excess estrogen and stress hormones and all these things. Beautiful physiological responses happen in the body after a good cry, where we feel better. Drinking something warm or getting in warm water, incredibly regulating signals to your body that you are safe. There's a million different practices, and I teach all of these things inside my programs, but we've gone through several. Go outside, take your shoes off, stand on the grass, lie on the grass naked if that's available to you. That would be even better. That's not available to me here where I live, but I wish it were. Next place.
I live in Portland. Anything goes.
So you live in Portland. So so that maybe that is available to you.
In some places, actually.
I love that.
It is.
That's great. Fantastic. There is a nude beach here in Miami that I've never been to, but that would probably be very regulating in certain ways.
But also dysregulating in other ways.
Until I went multiple times, and then it felt safe, because that's how we expand. So maybe, who knows?
Right.
But in that moment, when you are about to take an action that your nervous system suspects is going to put you into a range of reality that is unfamiliar, which is rocking a sales call and signing your first paid client, right? It will go all haywire because it is trying to prevent you from expanding. And so what we need to do in that moment is find a way to feel safe, not tell ourselves a lie. Not think our way into a new reality, feel our way into true safety and wholeness, plugging into source. Because then you show up on that discovery call, you feel safe and whole. You're coming from a place of that deep calm, that deep well of like, my value is my value. I am whole and complete. I am a beautiful, perfect child of God, or whatever you would say to yourself. I am divine, divine substance incarnate, whatever. And then you're just there, and you can be present and shine your light on that other person, listen to them, be of service, and totally nail that discovery call, which then puts you in a new range of capacity. Now your nervous system is like, oh, great. Now I do high converting sales calls. Amazing. What's next?
Absolutely gorgeous. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that, and you also teach this regularly, breath work is also a way of regulating your nervous system. But all of these tools, I use every single one of them. And it's really, really, really powerful the way that you speak about moving from the feelings first, because our feelings influence the actions. If you look at that, the cycle of behavior, it's like the thoughts and the feelings and the actions. And so it comes afterward. And gosh, we could talk about this all freaking day. But you know what? You have a program that you're offering that actually it's launching today on the day that this episode's coming out. So if you want to share where people can connect with you, if they want to learn more about what you're offering, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So I teach a free workshop 2 times a year. So this is the one of 2 times a year that you can come and learn from me for free and be in an environment that is the same as one of my high level paid programs. So I only have one setting. You may have noticed that today. And that setting is on. So when I am going for it, I'm going for it. There's not a difference between like how I show up in a free program or how I show up in a paid program. I don't hold back because I don't know how to do that. And so in that free workshop, it's called Wide Receiver. Over 3 days, you will experience the first practical steps you need to begin to heal your relationship with money so that you can unravel all of these things that we talked about today. So we will dive into the nervous system and how it's connected to your financial reality, how you can reset your financial thermostat so that you can automatically experience more abundance without needing to hustle for it, without needing to babysit your thoughts and be like the policeman of your inner dialogue. You don't have to do that. And then you will go through a process where you're able to actually excavate and find out from your insides, from your intuition, what is the next perfect right financial action step for you based on your unique journey, your unique design, your unique scenario. And then I'll lay out the 13-pillar roadmap for creating relaxed money in your life so you have a step-by-step plan. So that's all in Wide Receiver. It's totally free. If you can come live, come live. If you can't, you'll get it on replay. And I'm so excited about it.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. The links are in the show notes for anybody who is interested. Well, everybody's interested. Who is not interested in joining this with Kate? Kate, I have one final question for you that I ask everybody who comes on the podcast. Where do you see the magic in the world?
Everywhere, but the main place is our nervous system. The more I learn about the way we are wired, the way electricity runs our bodies, the way our mirror neurons do not believe the lie of separation, the way that we can update and upgrade our energetic blueprints through working with our nervous system. It is so magical. It's slightly mysterious. And also just like really magical. Just the science is magical. So that's where I see the magic.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And it's happening all the time. Your nervous system, it doesn't turn off. It's always talking. Thank you, Kate, so much for coming on and sharing everything that you shared. So generous.
Thank you, Jen.
Woo-wee, my friends. I cannot wait for our Thursday thread to break down some of this. I really would love to share some of the things that have influenced me and the realizations that I have had about my own money story. And part of that has been in part learning from Kate and the things that she has shared with me. So I'm going to dig into that in this Thursday thread. So stay tuned in a couple days to tune into that episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to share it with a friend. If you learned something, if there's something that you were like, oh my gosh, huge aha that dropped in, you can share it on social media. Tag me, tag Kate. We will always reshare posts if you tag us and tell us what you loved about the episode, what really landed for you. Now you just keep shining your magical unicorn light out there for all to see. I'll see you next time. Bye. Hey there, unicorn. I just want to pause for a quick sec at the end of this episode to introduce you to a magical unicorn of a dream maker, Claire Burt. Claire is an amazing friend of mine and a heart-driven business strategist and mentor who is wildly passionate about empowering women to be the heart-driven creators of their own lives. Her gift is transforming dreamers into doers, cutting doubts, and activating clarity, action, and success. There are dreamers and there are dream makers. Go follow Claire on her show, the Dream Makers Podcast, where she'll help you take action on those big dreams of yours. There's a link in the show notes.